Hi everyone, I'm Savannah. Thank you for coming to my presentation. Um, my presentation is about the afterlife and why people choose to believe in it still and how it kind of came to be a thing. Um, for my paper, I really wanted to have an idea that was like, made people think a lot and that provoked a lot of thought and discussion and was kind of a really broad topic that I could play with a lot. And the afterlife was kind of an immediate thought for me. I knew that it was a really open-ended area, and I wanted to do something that was out of kind of just like original and out of the box. And for my paper, I chose to kind of play devil's advocate and do a more cynical kind of paper and basically kind of prove um, why the afterlife isn't actually like real and why people or how and try to prove that people made it up instead of it actually being like a real thing. But for the presentation, I wanted to do something a little different, kind of have a more positive spin on it, and kind of focus on something I touched on my paper is that um, and kind of like focus more on why people choose to believe in it opposed to them making it up. Um, so there, I came up with 3 reasons why people choose to believe in the afterlife, and that's to kind of deal with and kind of have an answer to uncertainties in life and questions they might have about the afterlife, to give people security in their lives and in thinking about the afterlife, and then also to provide a purpose for their lives. So yeah, I'm gonna jump right into it here. So I'm going to start with why people choose to believe in the afterlife and kind of give reasons why and kind of explain that a little bit. And then at the end, I'm going to talk more about why people choose not to, because I like to present both sides. I think that's really important to kind of have both viewpoints represented. So first off is that it gives people security. Believing in the afterlife is generally brings people, or generally brings you around people that believe in the same things, and that kind of builds a big sense of community. So it's kind of like a power in numbers kind of situation where you're able to feel more comfortable because you know that you're around people that have the same morals, the same beliefs, the same kind of thoughts as you do for the most part. I mean, obviously they're going to differ a little bit, but it's going to be more similar than it would be if you went to it's just completely like a random thing. Um, so believing in that kind of suggests that you believe in a certain religion or a certain higher power or a certain kind of spiritual something, and that kind of puts you in line with other groups of people that believe in those same things. And like I said, it could build a community, and you feel valued and you feel important. It kind of gives you an identity a little bit. It feels like a lot of people feel like as though they belong, and so it's a kind of relief that they're not alone, kind of feeling. So that's the security part. Um, Additionally, like I mentioned, there are millions of uncertainties about the world and everything. Um, and believing in the afterlife and religion and having and being spiritually whatever and stuff helps people kind of find answers or believe in answers to these big questions. Because it is scary to kind of think like, oh, what happens when my loved one passes away? Like, will I ever see them again? Will they be okay? And it raises a lot of questions and it raises a lot of uncertainty and kind of scares people a little bit. So believing in the afterlife kind of comforts them in believing like, oh, I could see them again later on, or they're safe, they're with God, they're okay. Um, and that kind of drives people to continue to believe in it and really to believe in it and then continue to believe in it and continue to kind of support the whole idea and pass that along next generations and keep it going because it helps people a lot, like emotionally with things. And the whole grieving process is significantly easier when you do believe um, in an afterlife, or if you have some kind of something that you do believe in that makes it easier. And the afterlife just happens to be something that generally makes it easier for a lot of people. Um, Even if someone doesn't fully support religion or doesn't believe entirely in an afterlife or they're not really sure, they still know that that's not a possibility, but they know that it could be a thing, and they know that others do believe in it, and so even if they don't realize it, it does actually play more of a role in their grieving process and the way that they look at things, and they might think, even if they're not really sure about it, they still kind of like are hopeful um, that everything will be okay, and that does gives them security even if they don't fully believe in it. So it's a very powerful thing to have this belief system, and it kind of goes unnoticed a lot of the times, but it is really important and it is really powerful. Um, Heaven is a really big part of the security aspect. Believing that there is a heaven and that people are sent there if they do good, and that it's kind of a place of happiness and that you're not struggling anymore. You're just rid of all of your problems, and it's just this glorious, great place. It gives people security that, okay, I will get through this. I know I will. I'm going to end up in a better place. Everything's going to be great. And they know they don't have anything to fear when death comes for them, if they believe in this. And even in other religions, if they don't necessarily believe in like heaven and hell kind of thing, they generally have something similar to it, like reincarnation or something, or nirvana or something of this nature. But it's very common theme that it's a happy state, and that like this isn't it. So and that's that's comforting for people to think that this isn't it, and that they like thinking that. So like heaven really is a huge part of security for people, just by thinking that in the end they'll still be fine. And then in addition to heaven is the idea of God, and that just someone is like watching them, and someone is looking out for them, and someone is taking care of them, and no matter what happens, they feel as though they'll always be kind of safe. Like everything happens for a reason, kind of, and stuff. Like God acts as a security blanket in a lot of ways, which doesn't, I mean, it might kind of sound bad, but it's really not. It allows people to kind of relax about different situations. They're in a hard time, they'll be able to kind of think, oh, okay, take a step back. It's fine. I got it handled. God's got my back. You know, in that kind of situation. And it builds like a self-confidence, and that gives people security about their lives and about themselves, which is really important. And that's something that a lot of people don't really realize about believing in afterlife or believing in religion, is that it builds confidence in yourself, and that's huge. And that comes from believing in something like God or someone, not just knowing someone's there for you is like, okay, I'm good. I like someone cares about me, and it is a really fulfilling thing, and it makes you feel really good about yourself. So that kind of continues the belief, because when people feel good, they want to try and kind of pass that on, and that's how it gets passed on to next generations. And this whole cycle of the afterlife and religion and the whole belief system kind of continues, is because of the self-confidence that you feel and the confidence you have in God and the feeling that you get from being safe with Him and all of that. So God is a really big factor in the security aspect of believing in religion and the afterlife. And then, believe it or not, hell is actually really important too, and security. Just knowing that bad people, people have done bad things, will not be rewarded. They won't be, just knowing that, like, in the next life, when they pass on, they won't be around those people anymore, and they'll be able to kind of breathe and be happy and not have to worry about their safety and stuff. So having hell is actually a big part of feeling secure, and that's why it kind of is a thing in religion a lot of times. Like in Christianity, hell is a very prevalent thing, and it's because it gives people security that people will be taken care of. People that don't share their same values and everything like that kind of will be in a different place in them. And even though it kind of sounds really bad, like, oh, me separated from everyone who doesn't believe the same thing as me, it really helps people feel secure in their physical lives to know that, okay, later on I'll be fine. I won't have to deal with this. I won't have to worry about any of this. Another reason that people choose to believe in afterlife, like I mentioned earlier, is that it gives them a purpose in their physical lives. in my paper, I know I told you it's a little bit cynical. I said that it's a false sense of purpose, so that people kind of blindly follow in religion and they don't put any effort into their actual lives or living for the afterlife. And I don't actually fully believe that. And this is why. um, the afterlife gives something or some. The afterlife gives everyone something to strive for, and it's just kind of like a big ultimate goal. Like you have like your work, like your little like short-term goals, your long-term goals. This is like the really longest long-term goal, and it kind of puts everything else in perspective, and it kind of makes you who you are in a way a little bit. If you follow it kind of in a strict way, it really, even people don't notice it, your actions are a lot dictated by a belief in an afterlife, because you are kind of, it's in the back of your mind like, this isn't good, this is a sin, this isn't, that's not good. So it's kind of a constant like check, and it gives you kind of something to put in your life in perspective a little bit. Um, People like the idea that they'll be rewarded if they simply follow the few rules that have been kind of like put in place with it. So yeah. Everyone interprets, additionally, like everyone interprets the Bible and religion and everything differently. And that kind of makes it a very personal thing. So even if there are two people in the same room that are considered Christian, they might not have the exact same interpretations of it, which, like I said, makes it a more personalized goal and a more personalized internal feeling and reward and everything. And that makes people feel kind of like good, like it gives them an individuality kind of aspect, even if they are in this big group, which is important to kind of stand out but still be together. So having that personal sense makes it, like I said, more important and makes it a greater deal, and that gives them a more like purposeful thing and makes them feel as though like it is important to continue doing what they're doing, following it, keeping up with it and stuff. So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's very important to present both viewpoints of things. So that was kind of reasons why people choose to believe in an afterlife, because it provides them with security, it provides them with a purpose, and makes it feel secure and deals with uncertainties about life and all of that. But now I'm going to kind of get into why people choose not to believe in an afterlife. And this isn't going to be, it might come off as being, I just want to warn you, it might not be your favorite thing in the world to hear, especially if you are religious or if you do believe in a lot of the things that I just mentioned. But just kind of keep in mind that it's not an attack on anyone or anything or any beliefs or any of that, anything. It's just things I've kind of come across in my research and things that I thought were really, really interesting, and I thought it'd be kind of neat to share. Like I said, I wanted something that would kind of be thought-provoking and something that would be kind of spark conversation and would be like, oh wow, I'd never even thought about that. That's kind of crazy, like, or something that would be kind of like that gets one a little bit mad, you know. So, so not an attack on anyone, just kind of throwing it out there. But here are reasons why people might choose not to, and these might not, obviously might be like more thought out and not be like the actual reasons, but I thought that they were interesting and I figured that I would share them. So the first reason is that there could be argued that there are a lot of inconsistencies in the idea of God. So in the Bible, it is thought that Satan was an angel, and he and 1/3 of the angels like turned against God in a way. They kind of started like revolting and went bad. And God responded by punishing them and sending them to hell, where they became fallen angels, or better known as demons, where they spend eternity being tortured in various ways in hell. And like I said, it can be argued that, and one argument that I have heard is that it can be considered greedy of God to be doing this. The angels were kind of greedily striving to gain power, to kind of like overtake God, and God punished them by torturing them for eternity. So God is kind of greedily taking the power back in a way. And that can kind of be like a whoa situation, because, greed is one of the 7 deadly sins. And it's kind of crazy to think like, oh no, God can't be greedy. That's ridiculous. He can do whatever he wants. His word is law. It's fine. And, like, yeah, that's true, but he's he's inherently good, and the idea that he would send someone to hell, to this torture chamber basically for eternity, is going completely against his nature. And this is kind of going to my second point, but by acting in a greedy fashion and trying to maintain power and be considered all powerful, and kind of just getting rid of everyone who threatens him a little bit, is really important to excuse me. I forget where I was, but it makes you kind of wonder, like, should he be in hell technically too? If it is greedy at all, even. It can be argued that it is a greedy thing and that he should be punished as well. And then, like I mentioned, I kind of went in my next point a little bit by saying that he's going against his nature by doing this, and he's supposed to be like all things good, and it's against his nature to do bad things and to physically harm people and to do evil things. And it can be considered that hell is evil. Hell is associated with Satan, who is considered evil, not God, but God created it. So there are a lot of inconsistencies around that whole thing. And if anyone has read Dante's Inferno, you kind of know the 9 rungs of hell. Greed is the 4th one, and it can be so like people are punished by like eternal, like having to push a giant like boulder or like big stone against each other, and kind of just it's like a constant like battle back and forth between these two people with this big rock, and it's basically supposed to mean that they're balancing each other out a little bit, so like they're not able to become greedy, and they're able to kind of amount to anything. Is what that punishment is. In another one, I think these are so interesting, and I apologize if I make anyone upset, but I just think it's really cool to kind of hear the other side of this situation. But I read a novel called The Gargoyle by Andrew Davison. It's actually my favorite book. I've read it like 3 times now. But it talks about the idea of suffering and how it brings people closer to like a godly state and to Jesus and stuff, because they're able to kind of recognize and kind of understand what he went through when he was dying on the cross for our sins. So suffering can be considered like a good thing. Like when you're going through a really hard time, this kind of goes back into the security part. When you're going through a hard time, you know that it's like, you know that you can handle it. God's putting you through for a reason. And if you kind of recognize the idea of suffering as being a real thing, then you know that you're kind of getting closer to God, and you're being like almost rewarded for being able to get through all this punishment and all the suffering. But the kind of trouble comes when you put it in contrast with heaven and hell. I think I mentioned earlier that when you are entered into heaven, or when you are entered into heaven, you're kind of rid of all of your sufferings and all of your torture and all of your whatever. And that doesn't line up with the idea of the suffering aspect. And then, contrary, when you go into hell, it's basically eternal torture and eternal suffering. So it doesn't really add up that you would be kind of closer to heaven, closer to God if you're in hell. Because I mean, I feel like it should be switched, you know. So that kind of causes issues in the whole understanding of heaven and hell and suffering and God and all that whole theory. It can kind of start some thoughts and ideas, and there are definitely tons of counter arguments to all this and stuff, but there is for every religion anything. So, yeah, that's just one idea. And then a really big one is the whole issue, if you want to call it an issue, with religion and how there are so many different religions and so many different ideas about the afterlife and about religion and about different things that there's no way that it can be a like God made idea or God made thing. It's like a human made idea instead. So, just for example, how much time I have left? Like 2 minutes. Crap. Okay. For example, Christianity stemmed from Judaism, and that can be kind of chalked up to being a guy. People kind of interpreted it in different ways, and then I'm getting two completely separate, different ideas and different things out of it, which isn't really so. Yeah, it's a man-made idea opposed to being God, so that's big. In terms of the afterlife, since that's a really kind of easy thing to measure differences in. Christianity believes in like eternal like heaven and hell, and that's whatever. Judaism only believes in heaven, so I think it's kind of cool to note that since Christianity didn't stem from Judaism, that you can see the kind of differences that arose from that. Additionally, there are tons of different ones, but this is like a really big theme with a lot of religion stuff. Is reincarnation. So if you are Hindu, like you believe in, or you're Hindu and like follow Hinduism and stuff, you believe in nirvana, and nirvana is a state of being. If you research it, it's not a physical place. It is a state where you're kind of just absolutely content with everything. You've reached your full peace. You just good state. And then once you have reached nirvana, you can choose to be reincarnated into like a teacher of sorts and help other people reach their nirvana. So yeah, that's it for reasons why people don't. So for my service learning, I have no idea what I'm going to do yet. I've had a really hard time with it. And I'm still trying to kind of figure it out. I have different ideas, like different parties and different teaching kind of aspects about different grieving methods. That's right, I want to do it on grieving. And grieving processes and kind of help people in the grieving process currently. So I'm not really sure yet, but in conclusion, what I kind of want you to take out of this is just it doesn't matter what someone believes in or if they believe in anything at all. The really big idea is that the afterlife, people follow and believe in the afterlife because it makes them feel good about their lives and makes them feel secure and makes them feel like safe and okay. And as long as people feel that way, regardless of what they believe and how they do it, it's all good. So, yeah, thanks. I went a minute over. Crap.